There's not many ports of Amiga games on the SNES, are there? You could say that there's a meagre offering. Shut up! It's time to look at more Mega Drive ports of Amiga games. This is the third part in a series where we look at Mega Drive ports of Amiga titles, so if you like what you see then I'll link the first two videos in this video's description. Before we look at another 5 Amiga to Mega Drive ports, there's been some comments on past videos that some of these games were also on systems prior to their Amiga release, or they released day and day with an Atari ST version, but honestly this is just a catch-all term for me to look at some games that don't get as much attention as others. The games I'm featuring are ones I broadly associate with the Amiga, and that's why they're in these videos. No need to get upset about the minutiae. Let's just go and discover some cool games together. That's what Sega Driven is all about. (1992's) Universal Soldier is a weird one to start with because there is not a direct comparison to an Amiga game called Universal Soldier. What the Code Monkeys have done here is bastardise a port of Turrican 2 that they were already working on to turn it into a Universal Soldier game based on the movie of the same name. What this amounts to are some exclusive stages that replace the shoot-'em-up stages in the original version of Turrican 2, and some artwork changes like new sprites for the humanoid characters. A couple of bosses have also been redrawn as giant Dolph Lundgrens, which is pretty funny to witness as well. It becomes instantly apparent what game this really is once you get through the first stage, as the second stage is a note-for-note translation of Turrican 2's first stage. It's a shame this one didn't get the full Turrican 2 port treatment, because what is here is very playable and feels pretty accurate to Turrican 2. There's even a little more background detail instead of just the coloured gradients of the Amiga original. Once again the sound suffers as Chris Hulsbeck's iconic soundtrack comes across as kind of rinky-dink in this version, but that's just something you have to get used to with Mega Drive ports of Amiga games. The Mega Drive just doesn't have the capabilities to replicate the Amiga's rich sample-based audio. I'm really surprised to see nobody has made a ROM hack for this one to restore it to more of a basic Turrican 2 port at the time of recording. So if you're watching this and feel up to the challenge, I think that this would be a worthy endeavour. (1994's) Zool is a port of the 1992 Amiga original ported by Gremlin themselves. Zool was an attempt to compete in the same mascot platformer space as something like Sonic or Mario. You run and jump around colourful worlds whilst also shooting at enemies for a bit of variety. Zool really tries to match the speed and momentum of a Sonic game, and while it controls pretty well, the stages are just too cramped and loaded with enemies and hazards to really let you tear around at great speed. Zool has a real screen crush problem in that there's never enough time to react fast enough to danger at such a low resolution. I certainly wouldn't recommend you play Zool in this incarnation because unless you approach things really carefully, it's largely a frustrating experience as the speed of it just becomes so unwieldy. If you do want to play Zool though, I'd highly recommend the 2021 remake by Sumo Digital Academy, which simply gives you a much wider view on the action and completely alleviates all the issues I have with not having enough time to react to danger. It's such a simple fix, but it's completely transformative and turns an otherwise frustrating platformer into a great one. Super Skidmarks is a 1995 port of the isometric Amiga racing classic. This Mega Drive port certainly plays well, with lovely Super Sprint style drifting and some great presentation. The cars themselves actually look polygonal, even though the game just uses multiple digitised sprites to achieve this effect. The tracks are really dynamic as well, and the dithered graphics to simulate slopes and jumps work really well here. Sadly, this port is missing two things that made the Amiga original so great: high resolution graphics and a track editor. Now I know the Mega Drive version was never going to run at the sort of resolutions the Amiga game does, but the loss of the track editor really stings because custom tracks is a huge part of the appeal of the original game. I don't know how you would have achieved this without a mouse to interact with the track designer, but it does make the Mega Drive port feel very bare bones when compared to the original. This is certainly not a bad little racing game, but it's missing that special sauce from the Amiga version. Oh god, he's talking about Shadow the Beast again. I know I have a history with this franchise, and one of the earliest videos I ever made for this channel is a video about the Mega CD port of Shadow the Beast 2. Please don't watch it, it's terrible. But this is the 1992 Mega Drive port, developed by WJS Design. Now I'm not sure what's going on here, but I'm assuming WJS had access to a lot of the game's original artwork, because it's framed at a similar resolution to the Amiga game, including the big black empty space at the bottom of the screen. Amiga games would often draw things in a smaller resolution than its full capabilities could allow to enhance the performance of certain games on lower spec Amigas, but I don't know why that would be the case for this Mega Drive port outside of WJS not wanting to redraw all the assets. They've redrawn the main character sprite though, and it looks great. Sadly, we've lost the opening cutscene from the original game, which is a huge part of why I fell in love with this game. It's so haunting and atmospheric. Well worth a watch if you've never seen it. Thankfully, the rest of the game manages to maintain that atmosphere, and this is a pretty solid port all things considered. Shadow the Beast 2 is definitely an acquired taste, and I would recommend playing it with a walkthrough so you know exactly what sequence you should do things in, because otherwise you can soft lock yourself by going to certain areas too early. It's a very creepy, dark fantasy action platformer that is unlike anything else. It's definitely an experience that will turn a lot of people off because of its brutal difficulty if you're playing it without a guide, but games like this are so rare in the 16-bit era that I just find myself fascinated by it. Shadow the Beast 2 felt genuinely scary when I first encountered it, and that sort of horror experience was largely unheard of in gaming at the time. Finally, we're taking a look at James Pond 2 Codename Robocod. It's very hard for me to talk about this game without nostalgia taking over, but this 1991 port of the follow-up to James Pond Underwater Agent takes a more traditional platforming approach. James Pond is now equipped with a robotic suit that lets him survive outside of water. It also lets him stretch his body vertically, which can be used to grab onto ceilings which you can then shimmy across. It's a unique setup for a platformer that really gets creative with all the added verticality it can now achieve with Pond's stretching ability. A good tip is to hold down when jumping on enemies. Simply landing on them will do damage, but holding down doubles the amount of damage you can do, and can even destroy lesser enemies in one hit. It can also make short work of bosses. There's a lot of stuff to collect in Robocod, but it's often just for points. The most useful collectibles are stars for health, armour for invincibility, golden ankhs for extra lives, and wings for flight. There are also umbrellas which can slow your descent, useful if you're navigating a series of small platforms that require you to platform upwards. I think Mega Drive Robocod goes a little too hard on the backgrounds, which were more simplistic colour gradients on the Amiga, and some stages can become quite an eyesore as the backgrounds clash with the foregrounds. But outside of that, I still find James Bond 2 Codename Robocod to be a really charming and fun little platformer that I regularly revisit. And this Mega Drive port is still a great way to experience it. And that's it for another dive into the world of Mega Drive ports of Amiga games. Thank you all for watching this far, and a huge thanks to our patrons who have financially supported the creation of this video. If you'd like to join this lovely list of legends, then please head over to patreon.com/SEGADriven and back us at the $3 tier or higher. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.